Hi guys, real quick, just wanted to say hi, happy Thursday. I had a conversation with one of the students in this course yesterday on the phone, and she and I had been talking about prose versus dialogue and just some ways that dialogue can be utilized. And, some of the questions that she asked me were really great. And I wanted to just speak for a moment about dialogue and also differentiating that from prose. If any of you are unfamiliar with what the word prose means, because I know it's a word we probably hear, but maybe we don't know how to exactly pinpoint it. Best and easiest way you can define this is prose is basically anything that isn't dialogue in your short story. So prose would take form in descriptions of setting, could take form in exposition or backstory maybe that's offered. So like telling the audience things that have previously happened, maybe telling the audience what's going on inside a character's head if you have a third person narrator, stuff like that. So it's anything that isn't dialogue. So this week we are paying particular attention in our reading and also in our writing to how do we balance story and prose. You can find, of course, examples of short stories that are all prose, or you can find examples of short stories that are all dialogue. It's totally possible to have all one or the other, but most short stories have a deliberate balance of the two. And the balance can vary. It really depends on the effect the author wants to achieve and just kind of where the author is going with his or her narrative arc, who the characters are, what just makes most sense. So it could look like 50-50. It might be 20% dialogue and 80% prose. Anything can work, but just know that there should be an artful balance. So number one, if you haven't already, or like if maybe you did task 1 for milestone 3 but didn't look for these particular things, look again at the story you selected and try to figure out what your author did and why did he or she choose to have this percentage of prose and this percentage of dialogue, and why did he or she place the dialogue where they placed it. Why? Ask yourselves always when you're reading other people's work, why did they do this? That is the best way for you to become a more informed writer and to just kind of figure out what are some tricks of the trade. I was telling the student yesterday on the phone, Connie, hi Connie, that when I first started writing, my writing felt really overworked. It felt very encumbered. It just didn't feel natural. Like I used to get feedback from my first creative writing professor when I was like a sophomore in college. He wouldn't like my beginning points. I didn't know where to start a story. I spent too much time trying to tell the story instead of showing the reader the story. I didn't know how to make things concise, how to make them pop, how to make the reader kind of buy into whatever situation I'm trying to create. And this takes practice, and this just takes being a reader and being an observant reader and just taking note of what other people do. So anyways, long story short, I do want you to be aware that dialogue serves a couple of purposes. It can do several things. It can, of course, provide more information about the story, tensions in the story, or the characters. So dialogue's really neat. In just a few words even, we can learn more information about a character that we didn't previously know. We can see a character's attitudes towards another character, towards a situation. We can also see conflict arising. Sometimes characters don't agree, and we can see in the way that they go back and forth that they're having a disagreement and how that disagreement is escalating into the conflict. Maybe this is the central conflict in your plot, part of the rising action, whatever. It's really, really important stuff. So below this video, I am going to share a couple of pages out of a book. This is a textbook I use when I teach at Penn State. I love this book. It's phenomenal. It's called Imaginative Writing, and I'm going to share a portion of the book that talks about character voice and just how to utilize character voice, just showing you like the different possibilities for dialogue. What you don't want to do though when you're writing dialogue is don't write forced dialogue. So for example, if you have, let's say, a character and the character is, I don't know, going shopping at the mall and they're trying to buy a new purse. I'm trying to make this like pretty just normal stuff that a character might do that might be somehow important to your story, even though it's pretty pedestrian. What you don't want to do is have the character walk in and maybe like the first line of dialogue is the sales lady, and she's like, "Hi, my name is Sue. How can I help you today? Is there something special you're looking for?" And then the next line of dialogue is the character says, "Well, I'm looking for a purse." And then maybe it goes back to her and she says, "Oh, really? What kind of purse are you looking for?" And just kind of like having this back and forth exchange of dialogue, a lot of which is just filler. Get to the heart of the issue. Maybe, I'm just making stuff up as I go here, so bear with me. Maybe the character is buying a purse because she is sad. Maybe she just broke up with her boyfriend and that's central to the plot. So maybe instead of like having her say like, "Oh, I don't know, I like plaid purses," maybe she could respond to one of the prompts from this other salesperson who's kind of a flat character in the story. And, you could write something like, I don't know, wistfully she responds, "I don't know what I'm looking for." And just, use these little kind of like tags on your conversation to show what your speakers are doing, to show what their attitudes are, and to kind of just hint at what the characters are thinking or feeling or whatever conflict is arising, rather than just having this very like artificial back and forth overworked dialogue. And I started critiquing and putting lots of comments into your work, and I'm going to do this for all of you with your submission this week, that task 2. And what you'll see I'm doing is I'm actually going through, and particularly with your dialogue, I'm like cutting stuff out. If it can go, I'm slicing it or I'm highlighting it and saying, "Get rid of this, try something like this instead." And I'm trying to rewrite portions of your work. I don't want you just to like say, "Oh, okay, great, that sounds good," and then take my corrections. But I want you to look at what I've done, try to understand like the thought behind what I'm doing, why it would be good to tighten up dialogue, or to try to hint at how a character is feeling by communicating maybe their demeanor, maybe the way they move, maybe they fidget, and that suggests that they're nervous without you having to write in the story, "And this character was really nervous because she didn't know what to say," or whatever. You don't have to tell us everything. In fact, part of the delight, in my opinion, of writing short stories and creative writing in general is that writers are really adept at telling the audience a lot of things without actually saying it. So they hint at stuff. And they make it kind of like a fun and rewarding game. So the reader kind of has to hint, or not really hint, but has to search around for the meaning that the author is pointing towards, but the author doesn't always just go ahead and lay it all out there. I mean, if you read a story where everything was just kind of spelled right out in terms of exactly how the character is feeling, what the conflict is, and the author just told you, and they didn't show you, and they didn't make you kind of have to feel your way through that. They didn't give you descriptions and images and good condensed dialogue. You would get bored. So you have to think about those things, really tightening up your writing and making it very, very forceful so that you communicate the most amount of meaning in sort of the most evocative way, and also in the least amount of space. Because it's a short story, you have to be concise. All right, sorry, that was like way longer than I wanted to talk. I hope that was helpful. Read the couple of pages that I'm going to post. I took pictures of them. I'm going to share them with you. If you have any questions, as always, let me know, and I will see you around. Take care.